February 9th, 2021. Jason Lange at Reuters asked me about changing parties. We can talk it too if you want, but I figured a somewhat more concise written statement may prove a more efficient use of time, since I don't plan to comment any further on Trump or Republicans. Feel free to quote, "I've been a Republican from the time I first registered to vote, but I did not vote for Trump because I did not think he was a man of integrity. I was disappointed that both parties were unable to provide better candidates than the ones chosen. It seemed they were relying on name recognition rather than the character traits necessary to lead the greatest country in the world. On January 6th, 2021, I watched all of the news channels report the same terrifying spectacle of our President Trump refusing to admit the election was fairly won by President-elect Joe Biden. I watched a combination of left-wing, right-wing, PBS, and foreign channels because the news has become so political and I really want to know the truth. Regardless of the channel, it seemed clear to me that President Trump was inciting the mob gathered around him to, quote, fight like hell, unquote, in a veiled last-ditch effort to retain control of the nation. This strike against our Constitution, our democracy, and against truth was just a final blow. I could not be associated with the Republican Party after seeing so many of them lay siege through violence and lies to overtake the country I love. In the days following, I have been validated in distancing myself from those Republicans who still refuse to hold former President Trump responsible for his actions. I think they are preying on the worst elements of our society, who desire to see us return to our roots of racism, caused by the fallacy of white supremacy. Oddly enough, there is a parallel behind what is happening now, during this second impeachment trial, and what happened in the aftermath of 64 million people being misled by the narrative in Tiger King Murder, Mayhem, and Madness. Former President Trump told an archetype story that was easy for people to embrace, saying he would make America great again. He painted a story of a successful businessman who would drain the swamp and put the little people first. It didn't matter that he didn't keep his promises because his base had already fallen for the story he told. They had sworn allegiance and perpetuated the attacks Trump made against anyone who spoke an opposing view. They had become an online mob of people who would follow their icon, even at the cost of family and friends, because to be in power meant you had to agree with everything Trump said and refuse to do any investigation to see if it was true. The Tiger King Murder, Mayhem, and Madness portrayed me as a gold-digging, home-wrecking, husband-killing busybody who framed the colorful Tiger King for killing tigers and hiring hitmen to kill me. It didn't matter that most of the story about me was not true. It was what people believed when they binge-watched the show in the early months of the pandemic, during a time when everyone was looking for someone to blame. The archetype that I was cast as in the show ticked off all of the boxes for anyone who was angry about being poor, coming from a broken home, anyone who ever lost a loved one to a rival, and everyone who hated having the government or anyone else tell them they couldn't do what they wanted. By contrast, they portrayed a murderous, big cat abuser and tiger killer as an archetype of someone who didn't like the way the world was, so he created his own kingdom, where he famously claimed he was, quote, judge, jury, and executioner, unquote. Joe Schreibugel Maldonado Passage declared himself king, much as it seemed former President Trump was attempting to do. Tiger King fans joined in creating and sharing cruel memes, accusing me of a heinous crime, and began calling out to, quote, free Joe Exotic, or hashtag free Joe Exotic. Despite me posting all of the evidence that proved the storyline to be laden with lies at bigcatrescue.org/Netflix, and posting every day of my diary on youtube.com/Carole Baskin, very few people wanted to hear the truth. They had already fallen for the lie and were looking for confirmation of their choice at follow-up programs. Confirmation bias is tearing our country apart. No one wants to be proven gullible, especially when they have been so vocal in front of their families and friends with their beliefs. So many people will refuse to even consider my innocence for the same reason they will refuse to even consider former President Trump's guilt. I emailed that to Jason Lange at Reuters. Partner offer to Mosey. That's the Museum of Science and Industry for those of you who are not Tampa natives. I wrote the PR guy for I guess it was going to say it in this next line. I wrote the PR guy for the Museum of Science and Industry, Rob Lange, with the following. I wasn't sure who'd contact about this. Big Cat Rescue opened the world's first augmented reality zoo in the Citrus Park Mall across the hall from your display in March of 2019 to much fanfare. See arzoo.me. We opened the second location in Plantation, Florida, but they recently rented out the space, so I had to pack it up for the second time and decided it's too far away to handle when I have to keep setting up and tearing down between paying tenants. We have always enjoyed a good relationship with Mosey since the 90s, when your former director made it a policy not to allow big cats to be brought on Mosey property. It's always abuse to do that sort of thing, and Mosey was ahead of the curve. I'd love for these 4-foot by 8-foot high panels to be viewed and used to promote the concept of zoos transforming into interactive virtual experiences. Attached are some images from the display I just took down. I'd love to donate a display at Mosey where people can point their phones at the images of the cats and launch the minute-long videos that leap to life. We also have a number of Oculus Go headsets that we would be happy to donate if they are used in connection with this display to show videos of our cats in 3D. You can see those videos in a headset using the youtube.com/BigCatRescue app and subscribe to Big Cat Rescue. Choose the ones with the 3D icon of a lion. Learn more about what we are doing in augmented reality and virtual reality at bigcatrescue.org/VR and at bigcatrescue.org/Oculus-Rift-Tiger-Game. Big Cat Rescue is closed to the public, so we hope this might help spread the mission of saving tigers in the wild and ending the cruelty inherent in holding wild cats hostage. If you're enjoying my diary, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find other ways to connect to me over at bigcatrescue.org/Carole.Baskin.